Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Galahalt Gaming, and currently the best performing video on my channel is the deck breakdown for the Valence deck. So I wanted to go ahead and do another deck breakdown, this time for my DDD deck. Sorry, my hair is kind of all over the place today. But anyway, uh, just as a note, this isn't the deck I've actually been using. The deck I've been using has a few cards swapped out or added in or removed, just because I didn't have enough ultra rare tickets to actually craft the entire deck. I was missing just enough to make Foolish Burial and Duodon King. But anyway, of course, you guys all know about all the hand traps: 3 Maxis, 3 Ashes, 1 Nibiru. That's all the hand traps I actually run in the deck, though, mainly because this deck does need a lot of its core in order to function well. So let's get right into the actual deck itself. So your main starter with this deck, and the thing that you always want to see in your starting hand, unless you start with like the Dark Contract with the Gate, in which case you don't really need this. But if you don't have Dark Contract with the Gate in your starting hand, which is like a 3 out of 40 chance, you want DD Savant Kepler. And the reason why, and actually, I forgot something that I usually do with this deck. And there's a reason why you want DD Savant Kepler in your hand. What was the name of this? It's like Piri Reyes. It's a really weird card. But usually I run 2 of them, and I actually don't run... Yeah, actually, I'm starting to remember the original build of this deck, and I think I was okay to run. Like, the only thing I'm missing tickets for, if I take out the combo that I wanted to add, is Duodon King. But anyway, I'll explain what Pires does in a moment. But DD Savant Kepler, the reason why you always want him in your starting hand, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can activate one of these effects. You can only use this effect of DD Savant Kepler once per turn. The main thing you're wanting to be using is your Dark Contract. Sorry, just give me one moment. Sorry about that. Got some grades back on exams. But anyway, where was I? Right. So adding Dark Contract to your hand. You usually want to be adding Dark Contract with the Gate because this is your main searcher in the deck. Just a pretty good combo. I said before, if you want to make a Valence player cry, you ash their Beyond the Pendulum. If you want to make a DDD player cry, you ash their Kepler. Just because if you ash this and they don't get to search the gate and they don't have Griffin in their hand, they don't have combo. They can't do anything beyond that point. So that's your main starter. On occasion, you'll have something else you'll want to do. But I'm just, from here on, I'm going to go through like each of the card effects themselves. Necro Slime is, if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and another DD, or you can banish it and any of the materials you need, I guess I should say, to special summon a DDD monster from the extra deck. Or fusion summon, I guess I should say. The only one currently in the extra deck that you can't summon by this effect is Super Doom King, because he requires 2 DDDs. And because you have to use DD Necro Slime. By the way, get used to me saying DD a lot. It's impossible to summon him, but most of the time you're going to be using Necro Slime to go into Flame High King Genghis. Then you have DD Lamia. This is your main way of... There is such a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! As link climbing. This I call synchro climbing, because there is a combo you can do where you're constantly resummoning Lamia and synchro summoning up 1 level. But I'll get into that more when I get to one of the later monsters, because they're the key part of that combo. And actually, I shouldn't have even said later monsters, because it's the next one. DD Swirl Slime is, you can discard it to fusion summon or you don't discard it. I'm getting things mixed up. You activate the effect, you fusion summon a DDD monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as fusion materials, including Swirl Slime. What you usually do with this is you use Swirl Slime and some other random card. Usually I use Lamia just if I have it in hand, but you just need any other DD monster to go into Genghis. And then Genghis's effect will let you resummon monsters from the graveyard whenever you normal or special summon. Actually, no, it's only on special summons. But regardless, it will let you add or let you resummon a DD monster to the field anytime you special summon another DD monster. So the combo usually is activate Swirl Slime. Swirl Slime fuses with Lamia to make Flame King Genghis. Then you special summon something, probably a DD Griffin. So Genghis's effect goes off. You resummon Lamia. Lamia you synchro with Genghis to summon Gust King Alexander. It has a very similar effect to Genghis. The only difference is, I believe Alexander's is a bit more restrictive. Yeah, so Alexander's effect is on normal or special summon, but it can only do level 4 or lower. But doesn't matter because you're going to be targeting the Lamia anyway. You summon another DD, you resummon the Lamia, synchro Lamia with Alexander to make Curse King Siegfried, which is a spell trap negate. So that's usually what the combo looks like that I do. I believe it is in the episode where I played DD, so if you want to check that out, please go check out that video. But anyway, we only run one Baphomet, which is just a bit of level modulation if I need another level 4, or if I'm wanting to go into like Kali Yuga, I can make another level 8. But yeah, just really in there for if I need to make an Xyz play and I don't have the right level, or if I'm wanting to go into Gust High King Alexander, which is a level 10 synchro. We have, of course, already gone over DD Savant Kepler. His pendulum effect is just, while you have this in your pendulum zone, you cannot pendulum summon monsters except DDs. You reduce its scale by 2 at the standby phase, and then destroy all monsters you control with a level greater than or equal to that scale, except DDs. Don't usually want him in the pendulum scale, honestly, even though he is a scale 10, for the sheer fact of you're usually going to be normal summoning him, and you have a way to set your scales anyway. Later on, I'll show you when we get there. But yeah, you don't usually have this guy in the pendulum zone. One that you do usually have in the pendulum zone, and one that I used to run at 1, I'm not sure why I'm running at 2 now, but DD Cerberus. When this card is pendulum summoned from your hand, while you control a DD monster other than DD Cerberus, you can target one continuous spell card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Good for recycling your dark contracts, but honestly, that's not the effect I usually use. I usually use his pendulum effect, which is once per turn, you can target one DD monster you control, changes level to 4, and it gains a 400 attack and defense. So the reason why I use this effect is, again, similar to the reason why I use Baphomet. It's level modulation. It helps me get more level 4s. I can use Wave King Caesar more often, which is the main way you get into your main monster disruption. Yeah, just good to have. Usually you'll see, and again, I'll go into the way you set your scales later on. But yeah, usually this is a good way to guarantee you get a 4 material Divisor King Deus Machina X. But anyway, going on to DD Orthos, this is the other tuner in the deck. I run 2 tuners. I know some builds that run DD Ghost. I don't personally. I just run Lamia and Orthos. But anyway, when you take battle or effect damage, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned to your field, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except Fiend type monsters. It's decent. A lot of your own effects are going to be dealing damage to you. That's a big part of DDDs, is maintaining life points. Because all of your dark contracts deal damage to you on your standby phase. Abyss King Gilgamesh deals damage to you to activate its effect. So a big part of them. Oh, and also now that I added it, period raised map halves your life points. So that's another thing you use your life points for. A lot of it is, and I've heard the comparison before, a DDD player is just someone who enjoys Excel. uh, it does feel very much like you're min-maxing, trying to get the most out of every life point. But anyway, a lot of time he's pretty useful. He's a level 4 and a tuner, so he can be good for going into Wave King Caesar. You can go into Curse King Siegfried off of him if you couldn't find a Lamia. Yeah, he's honestly just a pretty good tuner to have in the deck. I don't usually use his scale because it's kind of an awkward number at 3 for the deck. But if you need him to be there, he can be. Then we get into the other important card in the deck. This is another extender and also a way to get into some of your extra deck monsters, DD Griffin. So it's a level 4, scale 1, 1200 attack and defense. If you control a DD monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. That's the main effect you're going to be using, just because that gives you another material for... I've hit my mic. Gives you another material for Link monsters. It's a level 4 for if you want to go into Wave King Caesar. It's a... You can tune it with a level 4 Orthos from earlier to make Curse King Siegfried if you couldn't go into Lamia. It's honestly just a really good way to either extend a combo or start one off. And then it has 2 other effects depending on where you're special summoning it from. So if you're special summoning it from your hand or extra deck via pendulum summoning, you can discard a DDD, or you can discard a DD or a Dark Contract to draw a card. Fairly good effect. I only use it really if I have like extra copies of something I don't want to be using. So like let's say at the start of the game I drew 2 DD Savant Keplers and a Griffin. I can use the Savant Kepler and Griffin to go into Abyss King Gilgamesh, set my scales, and then upon pendulum summoning I can discard the other Savant Kepler to draw a new card, which is hopefully a hand trap or another extender. And then if it's special summoned from the graveyard, which is a bit tricky to do, but you can pull it off with stuff like Flame King Genghis, you can search your deck for a DD card and add it to your hand. You can only use each effect once, and then his pendulum effect is you can target one fiend monster you control against 500 attack for each Dark Contract spell trap with different names currently on your field or in your graveyard, then destroy DD Griffin. Only really good if your opponent is playing a huge beat stick that you can't get over. Like, let's say I had to use Nibiru on their first turn and I can't get past the token that is summoned. Griffin might give me just enough to get over it, but most of the time you're not going to see it in the Pendulum Scales either. Instead, the ones you're going to see in the Pendulum Scales more often are these next few. So we have DD Savant Newton. You can discard this card and target a DD or Dark Contract card in your graveyard. Except Savant Newton, add it to your hand. A lot of the time this is, like let's say you went first, you set up a board, your opponent managed to break it, but they didn't kill you. Newton is a good way to recover because Newton can grab Kepler if Kepler ever went to the graveyard. Kepler grabs another gate, the gate gets your combo started again. But honestly, he is mostly in there for a high scale if I need a high scale to pendulum summon from extra deck. Speaking of his pendulum effect is you cannot pendulum summon except these. Excuse me. But anyway, his effect is you cannot pendulum summon monsters except DDs. This effect cannot be negated. Once while this card is in your pendulum zone, you can negate an activated trap effect that would inflict damage to you, then destroy this card. Don't really use that effect often. Most of the time, if Savant Newton is in the pendulum zone, it's because I want a 10 scale for some reason. But anyway, yeah, for the most part, it's either the discard effect or he's in my pendulum zone. Up next is Oblivion King Abyss Ragnarok, which you're going to learn the DD names are kind of ridiculous, especially when we get into the extra deck. We haven't even gotten there yet. But if this card is normal special summon, you can target one DDD monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effect once per turn. Once per turn, you contribute one other DD monster, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish it. very good non-destruction removal. Problem is he's a level 8, so you're either pendulum summoning him or you're not summoning him at all. The reason why he's in the deck over other maybe better options is because of his pendulum effect. If you special summon a DD monster, except during the damage step, you can target one DD monster in your graveyard. Any battle damage your opponent takes becomes halved for the rest of the turn. Also, special summon that monster, and if you do, take 1,000 damage, which that's another effect that hurts you for using it, but for the most part, you can get around this. I believe the lowest your life points can go from self-damage in one turn is 3,000, which is a dangerous life point total to be at. A lot of boss monsters are 3,000, but if you set up your board right, and if you're using all of these effects, they shouldn't even get a chance. Which I will say, DD is very negate heavy. It is very much a go first deck as compared to my Valence deck, which I've already been over. But anyway, final monster of the deck is Go DDD Divine Zero King Rage. With a name like that, you know he's going to be good. So, when this card declares an attack, if your opponent's life points are 4,000 or less, you can make this card gain attack equal to your opponent's life points until the end of this turn. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no damage from battles involving this card. Excuse me. I'm talking a lot. You contribute one other monster, apply one of these effects until the end of this turn. Either this card can attack directly, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in the spell and trap zones, or your opponent cannot activate card effects in their hand or graveyard. And this effect right here is not a once per turn, so you can tribute 3 monsters, get all 3 effects. Thing is, he's a level 10, and you cannot special summon him with the scales I have in the deck. So why is he in the deck? Because of his pendulum effect, and also because of his pendulum scale. He's one of the rare monsters in this game that is a scale 0, meaning that it is one of the few cases where you can actually pendulum summon level 1 monsters, which there are quite a few. Necro Slime, Lamia, and Savant Kepler are all level 1 monsters, so good to have as a backup. But anyway, pendulum effect is, if you would take effect damage, you take no damage. If you normal summon one level 5 or higher DD monster, you can do it without tributing. You can only use each effect once per turn. Very good effect, because that lets me normal summon Oblivion King Abyss Ragnarok for free if I have it in my hand. As well, a lot of the self-damaging effects no longer damage you. It is only once per turn, so you only get one freebie. The rest are still going to damage you, so bear that in mind. Still very good, though. And then the cards that I just added on camera, actually, Pure Erase Map. So this one is, at the start of your main phase 1, add 1 monster with 0 attack from your deck to your hand, but have your life points. After adding it to your hand until the end of the next turn after this card was activated, you cannot activate the added monster's effects or the effective cards with its name until you normal summon that monster or a card with its name. The sole reason this is in the deck is a searcher for Savant Kepler, who has 0 attack. Because you activate Pure Erase Map, you have your life points, you get Savant Kepler to your hand. You cannot activate effects of the monster until you normal summon it, but you're going to be normal summoning Kepler anyway to get the Gate Search. So just good starter, good searcher. This is basically the deck's Rhoda. But anyway, going into the Dark Contracts, this is where we start getting into the damaging spells and traps. We're running 3 of the field spell, Dark Contract with Patent License. So if your opponent special summons a monster with the same card type as a monster you control, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. Also, while this card is on the field, your opponent cannot special summon monsters with the same card type as that special summon monster for the rest of the turn. So basically, let's say I control a Synchro monster against a Sword Soul deck. The Sword Soul deck goes into Shishao. They take 1,000 damage for summoning Shishao, and now they can't Synchro summon for the rest of the turn. Same for if I'm playing against a Utopia deck and I have Deus Machinex out. If they summon Utopia, they take 1,000, they can't Xyz summon anymore. Same with Lynx if I have Abyss King Gilgamesh out. They summon a Link monster, They take 1,000. They can't link summon for the rest of the turn. Bear in mind that is only while Dark Contract Patent License is on the field, and it is only for the rest of the turn. But anyway, it does have a second effect. Where is it? If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one DD monster from your graveyard or one face-up DD monster from your extra deck to your hand. So a good way to recycle some supplies if this does happen to get destroyed, or if you discard it, and this is actually a really interesting combo, discarding it with the Pendulum Summon effect of Griffin will still give you the effect of grabbing a DD monster. So it's always a good thing to keep in mind if you have like an extra copy of Patent License that you can't or don't want to activate. You can discard it with Griffin to draw a card, and as well get a DD monster from your graveyard or extra deck back to your hand. And then I don't believe Patent License actually causes any self-damage. It's like the only spell in the deck that doesn't. But anyway, getting into the ones that do, Dark Contract with the Gate is during your main phase you can add a DD monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect once per turn, and during your standby phase you take 1,000. I was talking earlier about how Peri-Res is the deck's Rhoda. That was kind of a lie. This is the deck's Rhoda. If you have this, you can search any DD monster you want. No restrictions, no like level 4 or lower. If I really wanted to, I could search out Divine Zero King Rage. Very good in the deck. It is your main starter, your main searcher, your main extender, everything. Because most of the time you aren't going to have all the pieces in your hand, but this is just your skeleton key. This will find you whatever you're missing. If you have Kepler and Griffin in your hand, this will find you like Swirl Slime. If you have if you only have the gate in your hand and nothing else, you can use the gate to find actually I don't know what you do in that case, but regardless, it's just a very good card to have, very good way to sort of smooth out your hands and make sure that you always have access to your extra deck. And then I only run 2 of the Dark Contract with the Swamp King. This is just another way of fusion summoning. You can use monsters from your hand or field as material. But if you're summoning a DD fusion monster, you can also banish monsters from your graveyard. So once per turn, you take 1,000 at the start of your turn. But it is just another extension, sort of. As well, it is the one way in the deck of going into Super Doom King Purple Armageddon, which is a decent boss monster. It's 3,500 attack, which is greater than most bosses you'll come across, and it can destroy an attack position monster once per turn, and inflict damage to the opponent equal to half the attack. And yeah, that is, I believe, all for the main deck, so we're going to go into the extra deck. Of course, we've already gone over Flame King Genghis. So Flame High King Genghis requires a level 5 or higher DD monster and another DD monster. It has a similar effect to Flame King Genghis, however it activates on normal or special summons. And then once per turn when a spell trap card or its effect is activated, you can quick effect negate the activation. But I should mention, and something you need to keep in mind if you're going to play this deck and you want to play Flame High King Genghis, once per your turn. I know it says quick effect. You cannot activate this effect during your opponent's turn. This is not a spell trap negate during your opponent's turn. This is purely for if you want to prevent some self-damage, or if they're running something like Labyrinth and you want to negate... Jesus, voice crack. If you want to negate the activation of like Welcome Labyrinth. Then, of course, we've just went over Super Doom King Purple Armageddon. We went over its main effect, but it also has the effect of, before damage calculation, if an opponent's monster battles, you can make its attack become equal to the original attack until the end of the damage step. And then, if this card is in the monster zone when it's destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. It has a pendulum effect of once per turn. I really need to get better sleep. If your DDD fusion monster battles an opponent's monster, you can make that opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack until the end of this turn. Not the greatest, but it is a scale 1, so sometimes you do have cases where you want it to go to the Pendulum Zone just so you have better pendulum scales. At the same time, though, not really. It's one of the few cases where this is purely in the deck if there is a boss monster that I can't get over. Because then I use Dark Contract with Swamp King, fuse away 2 of my other extra deck monsters, go into Super Doom King Purple Armageddon, I can get rid of whatever boss monster was bothering me, and then swing in for a massive attack. We've already went over Gust King Alexander. Curse King Siegfried is a spell trap negate first off. During either player's turn, you can target one face-up spell trap card on the field. That target has its effects negated until the next standby phase. I know that doesn't sound like a spell trap negate, but when people activate spell cards, they are technically face-up on the field for a split second, so you can even negate something like Raigeki with this. Which is good because the deck is kind of weak against spell traps, so this is like your one line of defense. But anyway, that is, of course, a once per turn. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, gain 1,000 life points for each Dark Contract card you control. This effect is okay. It's okay for the fact of if your opponent can only get over Siegfried, they do so, but you regain life points equal to the number of Dark Contracts you control. It's a good way to sort of stall out for a little bit. Regain some life points, make sure that your own self-damage isn't going to kill you, because these aren't like your what's the card? It's the trap card that negates spell cards. It's not like that. I think it's like Royal Decree or something like that. But it's not like that where you pay 700 life points or destroy it. You have to pay the price, and if that price kills you, you die. You don't get to destroy the card if you don't have 1,000 life points to pay. It will still damage you. So this is a good way to make sure you get one more turn if they're going all out and destroying everything, but they don't manage to kill you. And then Gust High King Alexander, similar to Flame High King Genghis, this is an upgrade of Gust King Alexander. So the way this one works is it's a level 10, requires a tuner and 1 non-tuner. If 3 or more DDD monsters are on the field, and it does count itself, this card gains 3,000 attack, so it becomes a 6,000 beater. If another DD monster is normal and special summoned to your field while this monster is on the field, you can target one DD monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And you can only use this effect once per turn. So, very similar to Flame High King Genghis, it has an additional effect to its base form, that being the doubled attack, and then an upgraded version of the base form's special summoning. Gust King Alexander can only special summon level 4 or lowers. Gust High King Alexander can summon any of them. Very good card. If I can, I will always go into this, because it is such a large monster. It can get over basically anything in the game. Like, this is even stronger than... This crashes against a full hand Slifer, which is ridiculous. But anyway, going into the Xyz monsters now, which... If you haven't noticed yet, this deck is kind of spread out a little bit on what extra deck monsters you want to summon. We have 3 fusions, 3 synchros, 5 Xyz, and 4 links. Which, granted, I don't have one of them crafted, but we're not going to get into that. But anyway, Wave King Caesar. Most of the time I'm not going to be using his effects, but his effects are: requires 2 level 4 Fiend types. During either player's turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card. At the end of the battle phase, special summon from your graveyard as many monsters destroyed this turn as possible, but during the next standby phase, take 1,000 damage for each monster special summoned by this effect. Another self-damaging effect. This is, if you are going to use this one, I highly recommend you have Divine Zero King Rage in your Pendulum Zone. Otherwise, this has a very good chance of killing you. But anyway, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. Not bad. At the same time, though, you have other better searchers, and you don't want to be sending this from the field to the graveyard anyway without use. So most of the time, Wave King Caesar just serves as a stepping stone for the summoning of Marksman King Tell. So this one requires 2 level 5 monsters, but you're never going to summon it with that requirement, because you can also Xyz summon this card by using a rank 4 DDD Xyz monster you control as Xyz material. AKA the only rank 4 in the entire deck and the entire archetype, Wave King Caesar. Once per turn during either player's turn, if you took any effect damage this turn, and that includes self-inflicted, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, then target one face-up monster on the field. It loses 1,000 attack and defense, and if it does, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can send one DD or Dark Contract card from your deck to your graveyard. Good for setting up graveyard shenanigans, especially with stuff like Necro Slime, but again, Marksman King Tell, most of the time you're going to be using that attack reduction if the opponent even has a monster, and then immediately ranking up again into another monster we will get into later. Up next is Duodon King Kali-Yuga. This one requires 2 level 8 DD monsters. Really hard to summon. It's probably the hardest monster in the deck to summon alongside Super Doom King Dark Armageddon. But its effect is, after this card succeeds summoned for the rest of this turn, other cards and their effects cannot be activated on the field, and other card effects on the field are negated. Kali-Yuga basically says, whatever negates you had, fuck you. And then it also has, once per turn quick effect, detach one material from this card, destroy all spells and traps on the field. Does include yours, just bear that in mind. But you also have the second effect of once per turn quick effect. No, never mind, that's the wrong one. You can detach one material from this card and then target one Dark Contract spell trap in your graveyard, set that target. Unfortunately, it is a set, but I believe you can still activate the spell cards after you, okay, hell, I really need better sleep. After you reset them. So yeah, honestly, just a full board negate, because nothing else can use their effects. And then a 3,500 body that can basically Harpy's Feather Duster and Griffin's Feather Duster simultaneously. Because, again, as I said, does destroy your own spell and traps. Bear that in mind if you want to keep your gate. Don't use Kali-Yuga's effect, but sometimes you have to if they just have way too much spell trap set up. Like if you're playing against like a Labyrinth deck that's super heavy into floodgates. That's the word I was looking for. Or, and this is actually kind of relevant from the Masochist challenge that I played a little earlier this week, if they're running Makonko, because Makonko can't really protect their spell and traps that well. They only protect their monsters. So if you can get rid of all their equipped spells, you have a decent shot at winning that. But anyway, we're moving on to Super Doom King Dark Armageddon. Cannot be pendulum summoned. Requires 2 level 8 DDD monsters. 3,500 attack again. If you notice, a lot of the boss monsters have 3,500 attack. When this card is succeed summoned, you can attach one face-up DD pendulum monster from your extra deck to this card as material. Pendulum monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. Jesus. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, equal to the number of, or then target monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of pendulum monsters you control, destroy them. If this card of the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in the pendulum zone. So, main thing you want to be using this card for is A, the attack, and B, that effect. The effect is ridiculously good if you have pendulums backing it up. Simply because the fact that you can pop so many cards. Like, I've gone games where, upon summoning this, I could pop 3, 4, 5 cards at a time, just because I had enough setup from earlier that turn. Which is, quite frankly, ridiculous. But the pendulum effect is, if you have a DD card in your other pendulum zone, once per turn, you can special summon a DDD Xyz monster from your extra deck, except DDD Super Doom King Dark Armageddon. Not the greatest, but at the same time, that gets you a free Kali-Yuga without material. That's the main problem, is it doesn't give you materials to use the effects. But if you somehow got to this without using the other Xyz monsters, you can also go into Wave King Caesar, goes into Marksman King Tell, goes into Deus Machina X. Just sort of, again, this is an effect you don't really use that often. But yeah, now we're getting into the main boss monster of the deck, the big guy himself, Deus Machina X. This guy is fucking infamous, and for a good reason. So he requires 2 level 10 Fiend monsters, but again, just like Marksman King Tell, you are never summoning him that way, because you can also exceed summoning this card by using a DDD monster you control as material. Most of the time that's going to be Marksman King Tell, so you get this guy 4 materials. You can only control one DDD Divisor King Deus Machinax in your monster zone. I should preface that he can go to the Pendulum Zone on rare occasions. But once per chain, so not once per turn, once per chain. Sorry, I thought my gain was off. When a monster card your opponent controls activates its effect, quick effect, you can either detach 2 materials from this card or destroy 1 Dark Contract card you control, and if you do, attach the opponent's card to this card as material. And then once per turn during your standby phase, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone if it's free. So, the reason why this is so infamous is that effect. Detaching 2 materials to attach your opponent's monster as material. It is non-targeting, non-destruction removal. And all it requires is that they activate their effect. Now note, this is not an effect negate. This will not prevent them from using the effect that they just activated. That will still go off. This just attaches it as material, which I have had occasions where they were activating something that would destroy Machinax. And like just out of spite, I would attach the monster as material so that it would immediately go to graveyard. But honestly, yeah, just the fact that you have so many non-targeting, non-destruction removal just because your opponent activated the effect of the monster, you can disrupt all sorts of combos just by using that effect alone. Like this shuts down Sword Souls, this shuts down so many of the meta decks that require their normal summon, their initial like starter, to have their effect go off and stay on the field. Especially, like I said, Sword Soul. It was the first one that popped into mind because Sword Soul Moye activates its effect. You use Deus Machinax, attach Moye as material. Now they have a Sword Soul token, nothing to use it with. But anyway, its pendulum effect is while you have this card in your pendulum zone, while you have a card in your other pendulum zone, you can target one pendulum monster you control or in your graveyard special summon the card in your other pendulum zone, and if you do place the targeted pendulum monster in your pendulum zone, you can only use this effect once per turn. I have literally never used this effect because in order to have Machinax, I really need to get better sleep. I'm sorry, everyone. But in order to get Machinax into the Pendulum Zone, you have to... It's not like some of the other ones that can go to the Pendulum Zone, where upon destruction you can send it to the Pendulum Zone. No, Machinax, you have to opt to send him to the Pendulum Zone during the standby phase. I have never had a situation where I would rather have him in the Pendulum Zone than on the field, because his on-field effect is that disruptive. But yeah, that is Deus Machinax, the man, the myth, the legend. Bow down to your king. But anyway, getting into the rest of the deck, of course I've already went over Electromite and Beyond the Pendulum in my Valence deck overview, so we're just going to go over Abyss King Gilgamesh. Link to 1800 attack, requires 2 DD monsters. If this card is special summoned, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except DDs. Also place 2 DD Pendulum monsters with different names from your deck in your Pendulum Zones, and if you do, take 1000 damage. Right. This is the most important card in the deck. Forget ashing Savant Kepler. If they ash Savant Kepler, you have a few ways out. If you have Griffin, you can go into something else. Even the gate isn't this important. Hear me when I say this. If Abyss King Gilgamesh is negated, you are fucked. Because you need, in the DD deck, to set your pendulum scales using this effect. You don't have any other ways into it. So, I know I was saying earlier, if you want to see a DD player cry, you ash the Savant Kepler. If you want to see a DD player rage quit, you negate this. You negate Abyss King Gilgamesh. I cannot tell you how many games I have seen this guy get ashed and I immediately had to surrender because there is no way out past that point. But regardless, if this link summon card is destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster or by an opponent's card effect while it is in its Owner's Monster Zone. You can special summon a DD monster from your extra deck or graveyard in defense position. You can only use each effect once per turn. I've only ever had the second effect go off if the opponent wasn't reading or their only option was to destroy it. I swear I'm gonna take a nap like right after this, but I got work. But anyway. Yeah. Just being able to special summon any DDD monster in your extra deck. Most of the time I go into Purple Armageddon just for the free pop. If they have already gotten a decent combo and then destroyed him, I sometimes go into Kali Yuga to get a full board negate. Other than that, though, I believe that is the full deck covered. So, please enjoy this deck. I made it specifically. DDs have always been a favorite archetype of mine since I've seen Arc 5. So, honestly, I just wanted to build a deck that sort of paid tribute to them. This is the best I could do. I know there's better deck lists out there, but this is mine. This is what I enjoy. I love watching it go off. I know there are better builds out there that could probably win more than mine. But honestly, I really enjoy this deck, and I think you guys will too. So if you want to give this a try, here's the deck list. Feel free to use it. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Do whatever you want to. Completely up to you. Thank you again so much for watching, and have a good day.